Hello and welcome to Plus One to Gaming. I'm Chris.
I'm Eric.
And joining us are our two best buds and longtime table mates, Billy and Mark. Hey guys.
Hey, how's it going? I'm
Hey.
Billy.
Hey, how's it going?
Guys, thanks so much for joining the table. Do you want to give a quick introduction, just like who you are, what you do, and maybe how long you've been playing role-playing games?
Sure, I guess I'll go first. I'm Billy. I live in Louisville, Kentucky. I'm an environmental engineer for the Army, and I started role-playing with D&D 4th edition when I was deployed to Afghanistan when we didn't have any power. So we couldn't play any computer games, so we whipped out the old monster manual and player's handbook and kept ourselves busy.
Nice. And I think you've been probably playing longer than any of us.
I think, and I don't want to brag, but I'm pretty sure I introduced both of you to Dungeons and Dragons.
You definitely introduced me to it when we lived in New Orleans together.
Yeah, and I'm sure I'm not far behind. Mark, do you want to give yourself a quick little introduction?
Yeah, that's actually a good segue because I feel like I'm the least experienced out of all of us. I think Eric introduced me to like 5e. I think was the first time I ever played. My RPG experience was all like based in video games up until that point. WoW and things that preceded that. So I'm kind of new and am still learning a bit here and there. So, bear with me on that one.
No, I think it's great that we have sort of this full spectrum. Mark, I would maybe label you more of like a casual player. You play with us like often, but it's they're spaced out. And then Billy, I think, is the one that introduced most of us to the game. And Eric and I think, just fall sort of within that spectrum in terms of our, play style and preferences.
Yeah,
that doesn't mean
sure.
that I'm better than anybody. I'm still not very good at it, but I have more time being bad.
Yeah, I feel like I'm one of those people that's like here for the stories. Like the intricacies. A lot of times I'm like, hey, like Eric or like somebody, what spells are available to me? The intricacies I don't nerd out on as much as I do like overlapping stories and lore and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's for all of us playing together, that's been where we've been in terms of our games. Just the storytelling, the role playing have been, for me, the focal point and what really excites me. So I'm really excited with these games, with these adventures. We've got a ton of stuff with Candlekeep Mysteries, a ton of opportunities. We've been wanting to do some actual play content for the podcast, and so with the book coming out, we thought it'd be great to record adventures and, starting with this zero session. So let's get into that a little bit. In a few weeks, we'll have the book in our hands. Until then, we'll get the party together. And if we've got time, I'd like to try and run a quick one shot that will actually bring us into Candlekeep Mysteries, because we'll have about a week between this zero session and when we actually get the book. So it might be fun to just kind of warm up a little bit, but we'll talk about that a little bit later.
With the book coming out, I don't know how familiar Mark or Billy are. It is 17 different one-shots written by 17 different authors. And it goes from level 1 to 16. So there's a double up somewhere. I would assume level like 5, because that's where a lot of, maybe 3, maybe 5, that's where a lot of adventures take place. So what we had planned, and what I had been planning at least, was a different character and a different group for every one of these one-shots. Because in the book, from like the marketing materials, this is not designed to be run straight through. So every one of these different one-shots is going to start, allegedly at least, by your character or group finding a book and having to go to Candlekeep. So it wouldn't make sense if you were the same character over and over and you keep stumbling upon these like weird books.
God damn it, these mystery books.
They're everywhere. So that's really kind of exciting for me. Like, I have a huge roster of like things I've wanted to kind of like test, and like, ooh, what if, what this race, that class, this personality kind of thing. So we're going to get 17 different chances to do that, which is cool. Chris and I have talked about potentially rotating dungeon masters also. So like he will do the first one, I could do the second one, Billy could do the third one, and then Mark, if you're interested, I think this would be a good introduction to dungeon mastering because it's like a one session game. You know, it's really short. So I think that would be kind of fun for us
Yeah.
all to play different roles, all to play different classes and races, and just really kind of I'm seeing this as like practice almost, like exercising. I'm gonna try to work with a lot of character voices. I want to work with like different types of personalities, not only different classes, because there's classes I've still never played, and definitely races I've never played. There's like tons and tons of different races. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in learning more about how to run games and stuff. I think that really would fit my kind of niche.
Yeah. And if you, I mean, again, this is all pretty casual. If you get to a point where you're like, wait, what's this? We could sidebar.
So, Eric, thanks for giving us setting the setting for the book, and how we'll be running things and swapping things. We'll figure out exactly what that's going to look like, especially over the long term, because 17 is a lot. So we'll have a lot of content to be able to come up with. But let's talk about what we're going to be playing, the rule set. Like, let's actually get into
Okay.
what we're going to be, the structure of the world. So for folks following along, you can go to the +1gaming.com, jump onto our episode 0 and download the Pocket Wizard, which is what I'm using to kind of structure our 0 session. Starting with just the general, housekeeping. What like system we're going to be playing, it's going to be 5e. I'm up for any variants that you guys want to explore. So some of those examples are, if you want to take like a healing surge, there's a variant where you can kind of splash that type of stuff in. There's stuff with like sneak attack that I like to consider. Like if you're flanking somebody, you can get advantage on those types of things. So I'm kind of going like rules as written plus a little bit of homebrew splashed in based on just those, quality of life stuff that we kind of worked through in years of playing together. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
I'm a traditionalist with the flanking. I really think flanking adds much greater depth to movement with combat, so I'm all for that.
I agree with Bill, mostly because he's the one that taught me how to play, and like I've always thought that was in the rules, even when it wasn't. But I think it
His
adds.
bias shows through.
It does. I think it adds a little more like another tactical layer to combat, and I really enjoy that.
Yeah, maybe I should phrase it this way: Are there any rules that we've used that aren't the like rules as written that we know we want to include from the outset? I'm also down for like when we reach that point, or if we reach the point, we'll make those calls. But I just wanted to make sure we covered anything from the outset.
What about like critical fumbles?
Great, that's exactly what I want. Thank you for bringing that up. So personally, my general philosophy is I don't punish critical failures. So if you roll a 1, it is a failure. I don't necessarily make it the end of the world. I kind of take it on a case by case basis, though. Where if it's like you roll a 1 on your attack roll, I don't make you fall and poop. That's not,
Yeah.
But if you guys want that as an extra challenge, I'm happy to do that. So we can talk about that real quick.
I like critical fumbles. I think, once again, it adds fun. I mean, even the most seasoned veteran can make a silly mistake from time to time. So I think, that 5% chance when you roll that 1 of just doing something, I don't know, out of character or just sloppy makes perfect sense for me. I mean, it's not you're going to fall and poop or anything, but I don't know, just make it worse than just a miss. That's how I feel, is that, you're concentration lapsed, you just made an amateur mistake, and you may have to pay for it.
You know what?
Yeah,
I'll take I'll take some inspiration from Powered by the Apocalypse system, where you kind of get like maybe like or Monster of the Week, where you gotta get like a hard or a soft move later. Kind of keep it interesting, but I'll capture that, and we will include critical fails.
Yeah, I agree with Bill again. I like them. I mean, if we're gonna have crits, like the spectrum, I feel like it makes sense that there's a critical failure. Even if it's just like you drop your sword and you have to use like a bonus action to pick it up, which doesn't necessarily like affect your next roll. Like you would have missed on that one anyway, so you missed and dropped your weapon, and now you have to use your bonus action to pick it up. Something like that. Again, it just adds another fold to the playstyle, and especially in combat, because combat can get kind of boring.
Yeah, no, I agreed. So we will include that and add just a little bit of extra challenge if it comes up. In terms of resources, I'm open for everything, every book, Unearthed Arcana, expansion, everything is fair game. So if you want to use something completely custom and homebrew, you guys are totally down for that. Just my only rule is like if you're intentionally trying to break the game, you know, it's a shame how errant lightning bolts just seem to fall out of the sky onto characters' heads.
I don't think this group, knowing what I know about these players, I don't think any of us are gonna try to like break the game and make our characters like overpowered.
Yeah, and I don't believe that you guys will. But I just wanted to put out there that you can use whatever you want. I'm not doing any kind of restrictions. I want to see what creative, fun characters you guys have in mind. So everything is available to you. We will be playing in. Well, I'm just using the Candlekeep Mysteries book for this. For as we start the one shot that if we actually end up doing it, I'll be most likely pulling from Dungeons Master Guild or maybe Tales of the Yawning Portal. The Yawning Portal is going to be a little bit longer, so I don't know if we'll be able to get that down in a sitting. And then we'll try and keep these sessions. Hopefully, if they're short enough, we'll keep them pretty quick and snappy.
Yeah, I've read that they are designed to be done in 1 to 2 sittings. Now, I don't know how long a sitting is, but hopefully we can get them done in one session.
Yeah, I'm hoping a 4-hour session might be sufficient, or less than that. That's about all I can max out on these days.
It sounds like this is their kind of appeal to more casual players in general.
Yeah, with like bite-sized short adventures. I think so.
Which I agree.
Yeah.
Chris and I talked about this last week or whenever. And I think it's something that like the official books have been missing, because I mean, we've been playing like since Bill got back from the military, 10 years, 11 years, almost 12 years. And I don't know how many of their like official books I've completed, if any.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
like Strahd, I know Strahd I've read with regular playing takes at least 2 years to beat. So like I doubt there's a lot of groups out there. It's a lot. We can barely keep 5 sessions going. So I doubt that there's a lot
and it only gets harder.
It only gets harder. It's
As
got
you
like
get
its
older.
own. You'd think it would be easier, but it's not. And especially with all like the technology we have now, you would think that it would be easier, but nope. So I doubt a lot of groups have beat any of these books. So I do think that this is their appeal to more casual, which is awesome.
Yeah, like that's super exciting for me since I can't usually, not being deeply rooted, don't have, a patience for like a 4-hour session every 2 weeks, to be honest,
Yeah.
I'm curious what the pacing of these these mysteries are going to be, and I'm really excited just hopefully to play more consistently and have that closure of being able to open and close a book, if you'll pardon the pun, being able to go through these things, have those small fun victories as you go through a quick campaign, and then it might be a few weeks before you get to play again. So I like being able to have something you can pull from to just run a quick adventure. Eric, you mentioned something about technology, and I want to talk about that real quick because each of us are in different states. California, Kentucky, Ohio, and Colorado, and different time zones, which makes things even more fun. But there's so many tools out there, Roll20 and others. we're just using a simple, at least the way I'm going to be running the first adventure. I am a minimalist, so I'm not using Roll20. We're doing Theater of the Mind. We're using Discord to have our conversation and OBS to record it. But if you guys want things like maps, you'll have to draw them. So we'll talk about that as we get into the party dynamics. But everything will just be over voice. So I'll describe things to you. I won't hold any information. Like if you need me to re-describe something, I won't, withhold any information from you that's not, already available to you. But it will be predominantly Theater of the Mind. I'm a little loose with things like combat and positioning, try to keep it not too disorganized, but I also want to keep things moving along because, my personal preference as a DM and as a player is storytelling, not so much combat. But just want to set that expectation with you guys ahead of time and also with, anyone who's listening.
And I think, again, with the so many different stories in this book, if we are going to tackle all 17 with different rotating DMs and rotating groups, I think it'd be kind of interesting to maybe try a couple different styles. We've all gotten, I feel like all of us, myself like especially, have evolved from like the very tactical gridded maps and like that type of playing to more Theater of the Mind. But I also know that it's part of the fun for me, and I would assume for a lot of people, is to kind of make these maps on Roll20 or make these maps on, whatever, and send them out to people and have like these other like visual aids. And I'm sure the book is going to come with pictures and maps and stuff in it also, that we can have in front of us. So that's the way. I know that's like the bare bones, like easiest way. Also, a lot of times that's the most fun way, is just Theater of the Mind.
Yeah, with the rapidity that we're going to be coming out with these, I personally probably won't have time to do a whole lot. But like for Mark, who this might be his first foray into DMing, having the tool or streamlining things might be a good approach. But it'd be interesting to see what you do, Mark, if you or when you decide to run an adventure, what your approach is. Because I remember when I first ran my first session, I had a ton of stuff going on, and over time, I just whittled it down to the bare essentials. So it'll be cool to see that.
Yeah. And like over the years, I've, thought about campaigns and things before, but it's always been from a place of like starting from scratch, I guess, kind of just my own, like, oh, I had this idea for a character, what kind of story or whatever might be cool involving them. So it would be neat to have something to, like a baseline, a story, something to kind of riff off of, because, things like role playing and voices and some of the like more fun stuff is a little bit hard for me because I'm more concentrating on like the rules a lot of times. So, I think that would be cool to be able to have the story written out and be able to play with it. And I definitely think that I personally will have some visual stuff, maybe even just for myself, because I'm just kind of a visual person.
Totally.
Having the pre-written adventure, it takes away a lot of work. Like, you don't really need to prep. You've got to read your chapter or whatever, and kind of like have it in your mind, but you don't have to write anything. So it does take a lot of that work away, which is nice. It's fun to do that work. We all love creating our own worlds, but it's also a relief, especially like you said, Chris, the frequency that we're hoping to put these out. I don't have time to do that anymore.
And so, like, going along with the Pocket Wizard guide, one of the things is talking about like what themes or settings or worlds do you want to explore. I think for this we can, because we're all going to be jumping in and getting our hands into this, we can just keep it in the typical D&D fantasy Faerun world, unless you guys want to jump somewhere else.
Insofar as actual Candlekeep is a location in Faerun, so traditionally it is set in like the world of Dungeons and Dragons. The authors of the book, or like the wizards, has said this is easily, it's because Candlekeep, I don't we've talked about it, Chris. I don't know if Bill and Mark, Candlekeep is a giant library. It's like based off basically like the Library of Alexandria, or like the tower where the maesters are. in Game of Thrones. So the idea of it could easily be put in any setting. So if we want to play, I would say probably the first one, definitely, classic Faerun. If you're the DM and you want to take it to Eberron or to these other areas, cool. It does it doesn't change a lot of like the like core rules. It just changes the setting. So again, with 17 of them, I feel like we probably should. Like, why not?
Yeah,
Because I've never played in Eberron, and it's not a place that I'm super familiar with. So if we were going to do a long form thing, I would be maybe a little hesitant to do that. But with these little one shots, like, I want to.
yeah, and there's tons of rule mods too. There's a Star Wars 5e, there's a Pokemon 5e, there's probably any kind of skin you want to play on it. Honestly, because what if you go to the Jedi Temple and they've got a library, and what if you go to some major Pokemons and they got a whole Pokédex library? Like, there's just tons of different ways to slice. Okay, that's
you know how much I've been playing SWOTAR recently. So if you give me the opportunity to make this Star Wars,
that's basically why I said it.
Might be game over.
That'd be pretty awesome.
I'm trying to
do
incept
Star
you.
Wars 24/7. It's my whole life.
You found my dark, sinister plot of trying to incept you to run a Star Wars setting. But this is one thing I do want to talk about. It just as you're going through zero sessions in games, talking about the settings and worlds that people want to explore. It's fun because you get to try out new things and new ways of exploring the story together. Mark, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say this whole thing kind of reminds me of Doctor Who. There's the Silence in the Library. I don't know how much you guys are into Doctor Who, but there's a giant library that exists that has, basically because of time travel in that universe, it has every piece of like data ever in the universe.
Oh.
But there's a whole thing that takes place inside there. But it sounds kind of like a similar thing. Like there's a library that has all these like massive amount of stories that can be tapped into from all over, but in their universe it like spans space and time. You know what I mean?
That's really cool. I'm not a Whovian, but that would actually be sounds like a really interesting hook or setting for a campaign as well. And we've talked about this a little bit before, but I also like to, especially when meeting new players or bringing new players to a table, talking about role-playing experience, knowledge of rules, and play styles. I like to talk about that just to get a better understanding of where people are in the game. We've been playing for a long time, so I feel like I know your role-playing experience and your sort of the level of knowledge we all have in the game. One way or the other, we figure it out. But instead, I'd like to really talk about your comfortability with role playing and sort of what your approaches are, what you feel comfortable with doing in the games that we'll be playing these sessions. So, Billy, do you wanna start?
Sure. I mean, role playing is one of my favorite things. I'm definitely a character-based player in that if it makes sense for the character, even if it doesn't make sense in the game, I'm all for it. Even if it makes the actual game harder. I will try accents. If you will have to stop me if they become racist in any way, just let me know. I mean, that's my biggest fear. So I'm going to try to stick with accents that I can, generic good accents.
As long as
also,
we're
I'm not good at them.
No, you're fine. As long as we're not being derivative of people, or we do want to create an inclusive environment that's we certainly support and elevate each other. But I think you're fine there. And I also appreciate it's one thing that I've always
I have to avoid accents.
Yeah,
because mine all end up Australian for some reason. They drift until I end up sounding like an Australian.
It's going to happen, but I'll just practice. This is a good time to practice. Let everybody listen to me and laugh.
Yeah, well, they'll laugh at all of us because we'll all have ample opportunities to probably embarrass ourselves with silly accents and character voices, but I think that's fun. Mark, do you want to talk to sort of how, like what Billy said, just your interest in role-playing or experience, or sort of what you want to gain from it, or maybe in areas that you would want to grow?
Yeah, I think there's definitely plenty of areas where I could grow. I think one of my personal limitations is like voices. For some reason that I always get caught up and start to feel weird about that. So I don't know how much I'll bust that out. But probably I'll try and like go in and out, which will make it even more weird and make me feel more uncomfortable about it.
I'll make you commit.
But but no, I love role playing and the kind of storytelling in a group setting that comes along with it. I really like how, especially, you know, in the games that we've played, I feel like there's a good amount of like back and forth and things kind of develop almost naturally as if in conversation. I feel like we're good at that. Definitely excited to try DMing and stuff in the future, but I think mostly just trying to get my head wrapped around, you know, the role playing and all the rules and stuff is kind of my main objective.
Nice. Eric, what's your take?
Yeah, I have been recently kind of focusing on like building fleshed out personalities for my characters. And I think that's going to be tough doing 17 rapid fire ones, and making them different and trying to make them not like just a trope, but sometimes they're probably going to have to just be a trope. I'm going to put myself out there and say that I'm very interested in doing a different voice for every one of these, because that is something that I've started to dabble with in the past few games we've done, and I think it makes it, for me at least, a lot more fun. And it's an obvious delineation of when the character's talking and when I'm talking. I also just want to get out of my comfort zone of classes and races. I am used to playing specific, like I have my go-tos, and I want, 17 different ones. I want to play every class. I want to play a different race for everyone, and just have like a different combination of stuff, and not the stuff that I would normally gravitate to.
Yeah, I think this is going to be an opportunity for all of us to stretch our skills and abilities and role playing in a lot of different ways that we've probably never done before, which I'm really excited about. And the reason I like to talk about this stuff is, as you can see, we're all at different places in terms of, what we want to get out of games, where we want to learn and grow. And, if this was a single campaign or a one longer ongoing campaign, I'd want to make sure as a DM that I do my best to, address the things that people like and help them grow in the game based on what we talked about. So that also leads me into play style. So there's different aspects of D&D or any role-playing game. There's the role-playing itself, the stories that come out of these adventures. There's the dungeon crawling, the hack and slash, the puzzle solving. This adventure is going to be primarily mysteries. So it's going to be Scoob and the gang going in and trying to solve, some sort of conundrum. And combat's not going to be the biggest focus, but I do want to hear what your guys' preferences are. What do you like out of campaigns and what don't you like? Because as I'm running, the one shot that we will hopefully be able to do, as well as the adventures themselves, I can also, as a DM, you have the ability to curtail the campaign and the story to meet your players' wishes. So, Mark, do you want to kick us off?
I definitely enjoy the combat. That's a fun part to me. So that kind of hack and slash stuff can be fun. And I think like kind of the first things we played were just kind of the move your way through the dungeon room by room, kill a bunch of stuff. So there's kind of probably like a little soft spot in my heart for that. But I think a whole lot of combat, now that we've done more story stuff, gets a little tedious and slow. So I kind of like the role-playing stuff more these days. So I think the mystery really definitely appeals to me. And, us like talking to NPCs and that kind of back and forth sounds fun. But the combat definitely has a special place for me. I enjoy it.
Cool. Well, when those encounters come up, we'll try and make them try and introduce some ways that maybe will make them a little more interesting or fun, because I know that these campaigns aren't really combat.
Well, one of the things, and I think part of that for me, it might not necessarily be that there's just like tons of combat, but it gives me a chance to kind of explore the character a little bit more and the mechanics, which is just like kind of a learning thing too for me.
Yeah, definitely. Well, hopefully we'll give you some cool chances for that too. Billy, what is your preference in terms of play style?
I like a mix of everything. I definitely combat can be fun when it is like a chance to further, role play with your character. But if you do it too much, it definitely can drag things down because it is very slow. But I definitely like more, yeah, like the putting pieces together, solving mysteries. That's more my style. And then combat is just another thing you have to overcome. So I really like it when most of the combat is story driven and not just, oh, you've been here enough, we haven't had combat, let's do one.
Okay.
And every combat should be, I like it when there's a chance of a failure in every combat. Like I don't like feeling super overpowered. Some people do, just because it's not as much fun when it's just okay. Well, I know I'm going to kill him. It's just going to take me, this many turns in a half an hour.
Yeah, there's like a some semblance of plot armor sometimes when you're in these maybe like easier combat scenarios where it's like I really don't have to worry too much, so just goblins. But that can quickly turn sour if you don't keep your head in a swivel or if you've got a tricksy DM. So yeah, I think especially with what Mark said too, when combat does happen, combat is a serious thing and it should be a little bit dangerous. So make sure to make those encounters engaging for you guys. Eric, what is your preference?
Yeah, I think we've all kind of evolved our play styles together, so it makes sense that we all have like basically the same journey. I do enjoy combat, and I like a really tactical combat situation that is dangerous and has weight to it. And like Bill said, like not just like random encounters because we're camping and you rolled a dice to see what monster comes at us. Like those don't feel fulfilling, but like story-driven combat really does. But I know that a lot of us have grown into really enjoying the role-playing aspect of these games and talking to each other in goofy voices and trying to figure stuff out. And I'm really interested in the mystery aspect. I know in some of the marketing material they've labeled these as mysteries, and I do hope that they lean into that genre because that's not one we've really played a lot of. So I'm interested to kind of add that fold on top of everything we've already done.
Yeah, and definitely keep that in mind as we think about our characters and party dynamics and stuff, because the type of character you might bring to this campaign, like I'm hoping you guys are thinking, making characters appropriate for it. But it'd also be fun to see if there's a character that's not. Like we just got a big dumb barbarian, and they found a cool book. Can't read it, but
I'm gonna homebrew like a werewolf that's exactly like Scooby-Doo.
Oh my god! Yes.
Really, if he talks like that,
there's a way to make that work.
There's a way to make that work.
Well, I played a talking cat in one of our campaigns, so I don't think it's a far stretch for you to play a talking dog.
Speaking
of,
yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking of.
That's awesome.
What was his name?
Lord Wizard Claws.
Wizard Claws?
Yeah, he was awesome.
That was epic. That was awesome.
Speaking of that, of Wizard Claws, I am planning, again, with 17 different adventures, I'm planning on like bringing back some favorites, some old classics. So I don't know if like when we get to like the level 6 version or wherever we're kind of around there, if Billy is the DM on that, I would like to bring back that crew. And have them, they find the book, whatever. Because I think that would be fun to just...
Oh, that'd be fun.
To bring back some classics.
Oh yeah. Well, we were the way we finished that campaign or that adventure put us into a perfect spot to find a book that would lead to Candlekeep. So I would totally be down for that, 100%. The last thing I want to talk about before we move on, this is stuff that I don't think we need to talk about it, but I do want to bring it up because I've seen some stuff in the broader D&D community that I think is worth at least acknowledging, and that's kind of around just personal boundaries, things that we'd be talking about on the show or to each other. I think it kind of goes on, it remains an unspoken agreement, like we don't do things to each other's characters or to people or NPCs in the game that we would consider inappropriate. Won't go into details there, but I think we're on the same page there. I think it's worth talking about because I've seen some stuff where things got out of hand in a game and people got really offended or triggered. And I definitely want to avoid that with this show, and we just keep it good natured and fun. But I wanted to bring it up because it is something that, I think people might not give it that much consideration and could really get themselves into a situation where they put off people in their game, and we definitely don't want that happening.
Yeah, I think we play almost only together and have for years. It's a good thing to bring up and always remember, but I think we've been really good about that for a long time.
Yeah, and the next level of that is, if we're playing together and we're doing things that are getting on each other's nerves, especially if we're doing this a lot.
Yeah.
It is okay for we have a safe space amongst friends where we can talk about these things and hash it out without anyone's feelings getting hurt. So I just wanted to put that out there, especially for broader folks listening, that these sometimes, depending on who you have at your table, this might be a serious conversation. And I've played with, especially outside of this friend group, I've been able to play with people from a lot of different backgrounds and walks of life, and some of those have been traumatic. And it's when that you have an agreement with your party that or with your table that you're here to have a good time, you're here to have fun and celebrate these great stories, and that's where we'll keep our focus. All right, so I think that actually leads us right into the party.
So this is kind of interesting to me because we don't know anything. we know very little. We discover a book, we have to go to the library, and we have to solve a mystery. So that, to me, is kind of freeing. Mm-hmm. At the same time of I don't know, being a little scary. So it kind of doesn't matter what we do.
Yeah.
We're not fighting Strahd, so we don't need a cleric of light or whatever it is. We're not trying to give ourselves the best odds with our group. It doesn't matter on that level, which is kind of cool.
So being liberated in that sense, you get to do whatever you want. Like I said, if we have time, it would be really cool to run a little one shot where leads you up to finding the book that's going to take us to Candlekeep. Mm-hmm. And these characters, depending on how we actually do these games, if I'm DMing and you guys want to just stick with these characters while I'm DMing, and then Eric, while you're DMing, you've got a set of characters that we've created. Billy, Mark, likewise. I wonder if that might be an easier way to kind of manage these campaigns.
Yeah,
we can figure that out later, but essentially, if we're going to start a quick one shot and we're just ramping up an adventure, what characters with this first game, what are you excited about playing? Maybe we can start with any character ideas that you have first that you want to explore, and then we can move into the party dynamics of, all right, how do these guys come together and gals, and where are they headed?
Yeah.
And then we can start from there. How does that sound?
It sounds good. Keep in mind the first adventure is going to be level 1. So
yeah,
if you're excited about a class because of their 5th level thing, save it. Save it for level 5. I've tried to think
that makes sense.
Yeah, I tried to think a little strategically about it, insofar as like I said, when we get to level 6, I want to play it, hopefully we can figure out, and I'm sure we can do the counting to make sure that Billy DM's level 6 so that we can bring back our characters from his campaign. I mean, when we're talking about the different settings, that I hadn't really thought of this until you brought it up, which is great because the Pocket DM strikes again. There are so many different settings. I was doing a quick search. There are 7 official 5e settings, and then there are just limitless third-party settings. Like we said, Pokemon, Star Wars, all of these different things. Even kind of bringing our Monster of the Week characters into just reskinning this book into those characters, I think could be fun.
Oh yeah.
They're characters we've already made. We enjoy them. We know them. They could easily, in their weird world, could easily find a book and do the whole thing. Who knows what level that will be? Insofar as the level 1 characters, there's not a ton that I'm excited about because level 1 is kind of boring.
Fair point.
But I am very excited about going into Star Wars 5e and playing a character in that. Maybe a little bit of Starfinder-ish, and there's Middle Earth. There's Vikings. There's all of these different settings that I definitely think we should explore, because I'm really excited about reskinning and going into that. But level
We'll
one,
set a campaign in Valheim.
yeah, like easy, right? That's easy. But insofar as level one, probably what I'm going to do is something that I've been wanting to do for a while, and just dry roll my character.
Oh, okay.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, I was going to do a video on it and my recording messed up. There are technically 107 races. Now, 14 of those are tiefling variants. So that leaves us with like 43 races, I think. Yes. So you roll, a 1 to 43, and then basically just count down the thing. This is what race I am. There are 13 classes now with the Artificer, so 1 to 13, 76 backgrounds, 9 alignments. So basically just completely randomize a character. I feel like at level 1, there's no risk in doing that. Because if you're something that doesn't work, doesn't mesh together, who cares?
Yeah.
And then on top of that, hopefully what I am hoping is that in, rolling the background and rolling the class and race and everything, I kind of find a personality for this character. Normally I start with the personality and kind of feel what fits, but that's what I'm going to do. So who knows? Who knows what it's going to be.
Okay. That's a fair approach. And, before we hear the other ideas from Mark and Billy, I'm open to letting you guys start at level 3. Typically those adventures, are like level, even the starting one is like level 1 to 3 or, something like that. So that is one approach we can take. We could also do something kind of like a flashback where we do this one shot before we get the book. You're level 3, and then maybe at the end you remember the time we found that weird book?
Yeah.
And that's, where we start the level 1 adventure within Candlekeep. That could be an option too.
Interesting. Yeah. So for your what we would consider like a 0 or a 1 session, we could be level 3, and then when we get the book for the level 1 adventure, that's like a prequel basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's just one way to handle it. And the reason I bring it up, it's to your point, level 1's not exciting. Creating a level 1 character, not that fun.
Yeah.
I acknowledge that. If I can give you some wiggle room to have a character with a little more depth in terms of their abilities and such, I'm up for it. But if you guys want to also, I want to start from scratch. I want to try this adventure as it would be from a level 1 perspective.
Yeah.
That's totally fine too.
I'm hoping that the writer and we didn't really talk about this. So there's 17 different writers for these 17 different adventures, and they pulled, I think, all of them from the Dungeon Masters Guild and from the community, which is really cool. So these are people who have been writing one-shots for a long time, because that's a lot of what Dungeon Masters Guild puts out. I'm hoping that the person who wrote, level 1, level 2, even level 3 realizes there's not a lot going on for your character mechanically, so let's make it interesting in other ways. So hopefully, the level 1, you've got to role play, because role playing is infinite. It doesn't matter if you're level 1. And you're limited in your other options, which I think could be cool. Hopefully they recognized that and built that into the adventure.
That's where I feel is a benefit for starting at level 1, is because you have to get your role playing chops in there, because you can't rely on your character having interesting characteristics or interesting skills or stats. You just have to make your character interesting. So I guess I'll start is that I wanted to challenge myself and find something that's kind of the most mundane character and try to spin it into being something very interesting that somebody would like. So I gave myself a cleric of the light. So exactly what Eric said, we don't need, I'm going to be. Because, it's just one of the most generic D&D characters is your standard light cleric. But what I was coming from is I thought that this character could be a Shadarkai, which is the opposite of light. So that's an elf from the Shadowfell. It's a shadow elf. And so what I was thinking is an angsty teenager for the Shadowfell is probably like a reverse goth. And so she's a goth, Shadowfell, but instead of being like gothic, she is all about color and she's bubbly, but like that's a gothic teenager to them. So her name is Sister Camine Lorena, but she calls herself Cammy Rainbow, and she is.
Oh my gosh, this is great.
So she's gonna talk real bubbly. So she's gonna talk like this. So hopefully you guys aren't gonna get annoyed too much. She is a cleric of the light. She's the only Shadar-kai cleric of the light because those guys just don't understand how beautiful pink and purple are. So
Oh my god! I just figured out the best weapon magic item for this character.
Perfect. Yeah, I haven't really even put together any stats or anything. I just thought, how to make a boring class interesting is by making it a little bit out of the ordinary. So that is
all right.
That is where I'm coming from, and we can talk about it later.
No, a few things. First, and probably most importantly, I love this. I love that the counterculture for this race is this bubbly, like the good, the just like the epitome of good and bubbly, and like I'm thinking all of the Powder Puff Girls rolled into one. That's a great idea. Secondly, I love playing light cleric, so I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I had a blast playing light cleric in Strahd.
Because we needed a light cleric in Strahd.
Touche.
I don't know why, but the entire time you were describing her, I was picturing like a K-pop outfit or something.
Yeah,
nice.
Just like over the top positivity.
Yes. Oh, 100%.
Oh my gosh.
As embodied through like Japanese inspired fashion.
Yeah, I was thinking not K-pop. But I could go K-pop. I was thinking like there's like a Japanese style that's like super bubbly.
Harajuku?
Yes, Harajuku is what I was thinking.
Never heard.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought it'd be fun, and I didn't really know what to go because like Gothic for us is like dark because it's like the Gothic period. So I was like, what would they call them? And I'm thinking, we could always change later, but like the opposite of Gothic is like light and other. So I'm thinking about calling them like a prismatic teenager instead of a gothic teenager, and like instead of calling them like a goth, she'd call herself a pris. Like a pris.
Okay, that's a cool idea. That'll be a lot of fun. So with this race, Shadar-kai, I'm not actually terribly familiar with. Are they similar to Drow? Are they like an inherently evil race, or can you tell us a little bit more about the Shadar-kai themselves?
Yeah, so they are in a book, which is, I will get, I think it may be
Forgotten Realms.
Tasha's of Everything.
The new one?
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people that play the Shadar-kai, they do a cleric of the grave, which is like, exactly what you'd think.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, no, that's too generic. Okay, where is it? Oh my gosh.
That's all right. I'll look it up. Do they have? So here's my thing. I typically, if you pick like a drow or a race that's inherently evil and you don't want to play an evil character, I'm not going to punish players for that. There might be some like novelty type stuff, but I'm not going to oppress or prejudice players against their racial choices. However, if there is a racial trait, like if you're a drow and you're out in the sun, you're getting penalized by the sun because that's.
So they are on page 62 of Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. In there, like the elf subraces they have, so they have like the Eladrin, which is another cool one, which is like they're like more nature, like kind of like dryads.
Mm-hmm.
Then they have the Sea Elf, which I'll get to later. That's another character idea. And then the Shadar-kai, which are like they are kind of like that, but they're not evil.
Yeah,
they are like they just live in they serve the Raven Queen, which is a neutral god, just the god of death. And so it's like, that's why everybody does like the cleric of the grave, just because like, they are there to, be the judges of life and death and all that, but that's not really as interesting. So, I mean, there's not much. The only difference is they can teleport a little bit and they have resistance to necrotic damage, but they're basically, besides that, they're elves. They're
Okay, cool. So they're like the dark version of Eladrin with the face
yes,
step.
they're exactly they're the exact opposite. So they're supposed to have just, like no emotions. They actually, like the Shadowfell has no color, which is why like they're obsessed. She's obsessed with color, but like any color item that she wears eventually loses its color, and so she has to keep refreshing these color items.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so like as she puts on like these flower things, like they'll just slowly over time drain themselves of color, and so she has to just keep, it's a chore for her to
Yeah.
maintain her bubbly personality.
Damn it! I want these characters to like be able to stick around a little bit. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Gotta kill your babies.
No, yeah. The thing is that I love the idea of getting new characters because I like making them up and doing all this and then playing them for a little bit. But like playing the same character for 2 years to me sounds terrible because like after 6 months, it's gonna be like I'm gonna cheat on my character with a new one. I can't stay faithful. I'm not monogamous to one character.
Yeah.
You lustful D&D player, you.
Lustful as all hell, especially like just little things like meeting an interesting NPC, and I'm like, oh man, that'd be super cool to play that guy. So
This
that's
is
why,
great.
yeah. But I mean, it's not. That's what my goal is, to just try not to rely on interesting stuff in the books to make a good character. You make a good character
Yeah.
based on yourself, and so that's kind of what I'm going to be doing. I have some cool stuff in the books later on. Once you get like 3 and 5, but. I don't want to rely on it and think that, they're just going to be, every character the light level 1 is going to be the same when you can make them different.
Very cool. All right, so Eric, you're dry rolling a character, so it'll be a mystery. Billy's playing a light cleric. Mark, what's exciting you? What do you have in mind?
I am kind of excited about super weird races, personally.
Mm-hmm.
So like I'm just scrolling D&D Beyond, bird folk, dope, turtle people, amazing.
Turtles are tight.
I mean, I love that idea. But as far as class, I think I have a little bit of a more solid idea because I'm thinking I'd like to do something that's kind of nature bound. That's why the animals are jumping out at me. I like the idea of kind of, communing with nature, something along like the druid line, maybe someone who can use animals as well.
Nice. You could have some ranger options.
Yeah, because like maybe if I'm not an animal myself, it'd be cool to be a ranger and then have a companion animal of some sort. But yeah, I'm thinking. I didn't really know anything about what's it called, artificer.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, it's a new class.
Is that new? Okay, that's why I don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
But I was just like, something like that sounds kind of cool too. I basically like the idea of using magic, but not so directly as like Kamehameha.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like I'm launching straight lightning bolts at you because I feel like I did a lot of that in the past. I've kind of been wizards and stuff, so the idea of like using objects, imbuing them with magic sounds pretty cool, or commanding nature through magic sounds cool to me.
Nice.
So I'm thinking along those lines would be
cool.
fun.
Well, you got a lot of really awesome options. I Druid, it was so much fun. I got a chance to play one and really fell in love with the options for role playing. And also the utilitarian options that they provide. I mean, you turn into a dog and suddenly you have enhanced olfactory senses and you can sniff out clues. You turn into a cat and now you can be a little cat burglar and burglate some houses. And so there's a lot of really interesting and fun ways to play a druid. And the cool thing now too, there's so many options and variants and subclasses that you can really find something that's going to interest you. So I'll be curious to know what that'll be.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to really kind of dig into that. But the good news is with these different chapters and books, the way it sounds like it's going to be built out, I'll get to try several of them, which appeals to me.
Definitely.
Because again, like I don't know, I might start playing a druid and then be like, this wasn't the feel that I wanted. But it'll be fun to figure out what kind of classes fit my play style through some trial and error.
Yeah. Well, again, this is a choice that it's not set in stone, so.
I'm going to try, I may have said it earlier. Again, 17 books. There's 13 different classes. I want to play every class. And obviously we're not going to get to all like the subclasses of each one, but there are so many that, like, again, I tend to fall back on like the specific ones, but I want to play every class. So the first one I'm going to dry roll, and then from there on probably pick a different one every time.
Yeah, that'll be fun. I want to do the dry roll one at least once, so I'll probably jump on that too. Cool. So we've got some ideas for the characters. You'll have some time to flesh them out, roll them out, whatever you need to do to develop them. This might be a little bit difficult to answer, but maybe we can get some general ideas around it of how did you guys come together? When we're going to start a one shot, there's got to be a reason that you are all a group and a reason that you're accountable to each other. So it's not just a bunch of disparate people going off on their own agendas. There has to be some kind of bond. So I do want to talk about that to the degree that we can, so that we have some idea of how the party is unified. And then as a DM, I can bring us into the adventure hopefully a little more effectively.
Yeah, it's hard to answer because, like, we don't know where the book's gonna set us up. Like, I would assume, because that, like, meeting in a tavern and everything is such a big trope and like getting the group together is a trope. I would assume that these adventures do that. Like the book brings us together and we're all interested in figuring out the like mystery together. Like, I don't know, like, did we go to college together or anything? Like, who knows?
Where I'm coming from, I think you're right. So that's why I kind of want to do an adventure where, barring not having the book, where you leading up to finding a book that will lead us sort of into that first adventure. Why, at that point, like, why are you guys together before you find that book? Do you just want to come together and meet and go on some random errand, and that's at the end you find a book? Or have you known each other and have been working together for a little bit? Or do you have some kind of pre-existing relationship? That's kind of at least that's the first answer, the first question that I want to try and answer. So also then, like, I don't know, like, is it just like the party finds this book, and once they have this book, they can go into Candlekeep and go through the portal to do this mystery?
Yeah. It might be because of the unemployment office that we used before, which was like such a great mechanism. What jumped out at me was something like based in academia somehow. Seems to me like mysteries and books lead to research, and I don't know if that's too similar to what we did last time, because we were essentially working like for a university or something, but that's what jumped out at me.
Yeah, or is it, the party just was commissioned or hired by Candlekeep to do some kind of errand or task?
So I believe I've read that is the hook for at least some of these. I don't know if it's all of them or the first one or any, but the hook is that, like, you were hired by Candlekeep to find a specific book. I don't know if that's it's interesting because, like, the parameters that Wizards gave the different writers were very loose. So a lot of them, I would assume, took like very different routes, on what they produced.
Yeah, I do know, like, the one thing that should remain constant is that the book is essentially a portal to a realm where a mystery of some sort is solved. Maybe we'll just do the unemployment office. You guys are brought together to do an errand, and spoiler alert, at the end of that task or adventure, that one shot, you find a book, and the next episode will basically be the mystery that you'll have to unlock now that you've obtained that book, and I've obtained the adventure book.
Yeah, awesome.
All right, so then you guys, it'll be up to you to kind of set the relationship. We'll have the standard, like you guys are on a mission together, so therefore you have some accountability toward each other. But then I'll leave it up to you to kind of role play to the degree that you're comfortable, and to bond the party and have a fun little jaunt before we start solving some mysteries.
Awesome.
I really don't have anything planned yet. Again, I said, I've got a couple things that I could potentially pull from. Is there anything that you kind of want to explore? Because it doesn't have to be a traditional one shot when we do this. It could be whatever we want to mess around with.
When we do the
like the
intro?
pregame.
The pregame. Okay, yeah.
I'm just saying I'm open to ideas.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, because again, the things that interest me in playing this book are the diversity of everything. Again, I'm planning on playing a different class, probably a different race for every class, different settings. I think it would be cool if we could get 15 out of 17 of these to be different settings. Probably a few of them to be set in Faerun. So that kind of stuff is super interesting to me. And even if it's actually, I don't know if Faerun is showing my ignorance a little bit. Faerun, is that what is the name of the setting? Forgotten Realms. I was going to say,
yeah, it's set in the Forgotten Realms on the continent of Faerun.
Yeah, even if it's in the Forgotten Realms, but it's in the City of Doors, or in the Shadowfell, or in, one of those other planes that we'd never really get to see.
The Underdark.
The Underdark, I think it's called the Flagellum, the place where they're space pirates and space boats. I think all of that would be super interesting, because I love and have a soft spot for just the Sword Coast. And normally if I'm going to play a game, I want it set there because I know it so well and I want to spend time there. But all of these other things are just so interesting to me.
And I was more asking what type of one shot do you want to do for the first adventure? That was sort of where my question was leaning to. Do you guys want to do more of just a quick romp, do a task and get some treasure? Do you guys want to have some more engagement in that? Because I also want to kind of keep it something that we can complete in a single sitting.
Yeah.
Just kind of trying to feel out what you guys might want to do for the first little pregame adventure. We probably won't do this for every Candlekeep mystery. This is just to kind of basically buy us some time and
yeah.
kind of warm up our dice a little bit,
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a fun romp would be cool. It doesn't have to have a ton of weight to it.
Yeah. Okay. We'll just keep it. Maybe I'll do
a
completely random campaign.
Yeah.
Just roll dice and tables.
Yeah, I mean that would work. It's more about getting us familiar with each other, and
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll do that. I'll do just kind of that'll be an exercise for me, impromptu improv DMing.
Ooh, yeah.
And we'll see what happens. I'll have to prepare just a little bit. Need to have the end goal in mind. Awesome. Well, I think
I feel little combat, so I can figure it out, and that's about
just,
all
I
I need.
yeah. Just a refresh.
I mean, you gotta have some kind of fisticuffs. Maybe we'll just call it tutorial mode or something.
Yeah.
It's the tutorial episode. Cool. So that'll bring us one fight, one puzzle. End of treasure game, yeah, and maybe we can give you something cool to start the new adventure. Well, so I think for the sake of the show, I think we've covered the main things that we need to for a zero session. We know what we're playing, we know who we're playing with. We've got some fun ideas to get ourselves into this new adventure. So I think we can probably call it there before we roll into the next session.
Awesome.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks, y'all, for listening, and we'll catch you next time.